Welcome back to Dreamy Thatch Grill. I'm so glad you found your way here. I am Bryn, and it is lovely, as always, to have you here. I'm going to be doing a Yule tarot reading today. And with Yule, I think of it as being so much about shadow work because it is like rebirth times, like the darkest months and the longest night of the year. And so I think it's really good for tapping into shadow work and the darker sides. And I already have a shadow work reading that I really like to do seasonally. I posted them recently, but I recorded them at the times of the previous 2 seasons where I have videos up for summer and fall, specifically Letha and Samhain. And so they both follow the same tarot spread that I do. It is just a personal spread that I made up for myself, though it is based on the last 2 cards in a Celtic cross. Specifically the way that it was explained to me. One of the cards in a Celtic cross was explained to me as being representative of both that which you desire and fear. And I really like the idea of exploring that more. And so I just have a simple 4-card spread. It will be first the card representing that which you most desire. The second, that which you most fear. The third one will be sort of the bridge card. It's meant to represent... Oh, I did get it wrong. I was just double checking my notebook here. The first one is that which you fear. The second is that which you desire. The third card will be the bridge card, which is meant to be sort of the overlap on the Venn diagram of the first 2. The place where they are the same for you. And then the 4th card is the key card, or the way through, meaning the advice and energy to tap into, to work through what you are struggling with as pertaining to the reading. Get out of the way. So that's going to be the spread for today. I'm first going to light this candle over here. Quietly for you. Got one sticking right up. Wait your turn. If you would like to set a specific intention with the lighting of this candle, feel free to do so, though there is no pressure. I love these long matches because right away the burning wood smells incredible. If you'd like to take a nice deep breath, you can go ahead and do so now and breathe out in 3, 2, 1. There. Oh no. The 3rd wick didn't light. I'm going to bring the match back and relight it and get that 3rd one as well. In this angle, it's hard to see it. I thought it was lit. There we go. Never too late. And once again, if you would like to, you can take a deep breath in and breathe out in 3, 2, 1. There we go. Perfect. going to split you up into 3 groups. The first group will be the acorn group. The second group will be the quartz group. And the third group will be the spoon. Just pick whichever object is calling to you now. The acorn is made of wicker. It's very lightweight. I think it makes nice sounds. It has a nice texture here. The quartz, it's just simple, crystal, clear quartz. I think it looks kind of like an ice crystal, a big ice crystal. And then the spoon is just this little decorative teaspoon. Has a little crystal in the end here that's embossed in little decorative patterns. So just pick whatever is speaking to you. And I'm going to go ahead and get into it. Just so you know, the deck I'm using will be the Seasons of the Witch in Bulk Oracle. They also have a Yule deck, but I don't have it, and I also just really like this is a new deck to me, but I really liked it so far, and it feels very good for wintry vibes in general, but also I felt very drawn to it for shadow work with some of the readings I've done with it. So I think it's a perfect fit for today's reading. First up, the acorn group. Hello, group 1. I will keep the guidebook nearby, as I'm still not overly familiar with this deck. I did recently do a video on how I orient myself with new decks, and so if you're interested in that, you can check it out, though that's very much a more disorganized, rambling video. And admittedly, I did film it at about 3 in the morning, so I don't think I'm necessarily at a peak performance in it. Oh! There's some peppermint falling out, as well as, I'm curious, I think I might just set this one aside. I think I'm going to just set this one aside. It feels like it should just belong there. So that's going to be card number 1. And then I think I'm done shuffling. That feels right to me. So the one that fell out here, card number 1. I will pull all of your cards first, actually. It's a fear card, the desire card, a bridge card, and the way through. So, first and foremost, the fear card, that which you most fear. Again, this is meant to be a shadow work reading, so sometimes they can get a little bit intense depending on the headspace you are in at the time. We're going to just take it nice and gently. I also have only done, I believe, one of these spreads, this specific spread, with an oracle deck. I did it for Samhain, and I find that oracle decks are a little bit harder to read this specific spread in, because they often lean towards offering advice in a single card. People often do single card readings with oracle decks, I think, more so than with the classic 78 card decks. And so I expect this to be a little bit more ambiguous than if I was using a standard Rider-Waite deck. But let's explore it together. That which you most fear. Interesting. It's 40 snowflakes. Every moment is a sacred gift, a blessing you shouldn't take for granted. I will read their full descriptions from the guidebook once I flipped all of your cards. But right away that feels like a very positive card, and so it being in the fear position might seem unusual, but you'll find oftentimes in this reading, oftentimes good and positive things are in this position, because in life we're often afraid of things that we know we should want, or even on some level do. I think it's normal to be afraid of the things you want. That's sort of the whole point of this reading. And on that note, we will flip over the desire card. That which you most desire. Winter Woodlands, 44. Take time to honor what you feel. Self-compassion is the healing balm you desire. So desire for healing. Sorry, that was a little off kilter there. A desire for healing, notably I've noticed a lot of these cards have a single individual on them, so it's interesting that the fear card has multiple people on it. And in particular, it includes a child being led on a sled. Winter Woodlands has an individual figure, though with animal companions, and they are also unusual for the cards I've seen from this deck so far. They are facing away from the viewer into the background of the card. Now let's see the bridge card, the place where these two, your fear and your desire, are meant to overlap. Self-ceremony. Interesting. 37. Create the visions you desire. Take action in the plans that lead to fulfillment. I'm going to need to read all of their descriptions in order to get a better sense of what's going on here. I find these readings are often confusing to me at first, and then I'll see like a word that repeats across the descriptions for different cards or something, and something will sort of make it click, but we'll find out together. And the way through card is number 2, Angelica. The bells have rung, chiming far and near. Underneath feathered wings, my dear, you have nothing to fear. So this is your spread. Let's take a look in the guidebook to get a better understanding of what we're seeing here. Snowflakes and 40. Opened right up to self-ceremony. That's funny. It is. So, the fear card. Snowflakes. Enjoying life. Not missing special moments. Not taking things for granted. Every moment is a sacred gift, a blessing you shouldn't take for granted. This card is here to question whether or not you have made time to enjoy the fruits of your labor. The thing to ask yourself when receiving this card is, what have you been missing out on lately? Is it time with family and friends? Or perhaps you can't remember the last time you actually enjoyed a meal rather than rushing through one. take more of your first thought. Take note of your first thought and make an effort to nurture this area of your life. What comes to mind when pulling this specific card is no accident, and it requires your attention. You might be thinking there's time for that later, but be mindful not to take things for granted. You might bail on a friend one too many times, or miss the chance to see the glaciers before they're gone for good. The only sure thing you can count on is that things can change in an instant. This card warns you that you're in danger of overlooking something very important. It may seem small to you, but it could make or break your relationship or chance with someone. I thought that this seemed like such a happy, good card, but that made perfect sense. Being in the fear position, actually. Fear of missing out on good things. I get a strong sense of loneliness from this card as well for you. A sense of maybe isolation, if not in a true hermitage way, then at least a sense of a lack of connection. Though I suspect there might be quite a lot of the hermit energy for you. Not even true hermit energy, because to me the hermit is more about like study, but I mean like just isolation, staying in rather than going out, saying no rather than yes. There's a deep anxiety here, I think, possibly agoraphobia a little bit. There's a lot of things that this could be, and you can engage with this thought as deeply or as shallowly as you need to right now, but you should consider coming back to it later, especially if you are interested in more shadow work. But that idea of loneliness, very common, very normal. I think that I mentioned before there is often both it's the idea that the things that you want are also the things you're afraid of. And I think that a self-imposed isolation, though I know it's not always entirely self-imposed, of course, there are other factors that go into it. Please don't take that personally, but an at least partially self-imposed isolation is the perfect example of that, wherein when you feel lonely and it makes you want to shut down and connect less, what's happening there is such a deep desire for other people and for meaningful connection, and being afraid of receiving it, even though it's the thing you want most. That's exactly what I built this spread for, so I think this card makes perfect sense. Being here, this must be a very common one. I bet this first group was probably the most common one viewers picked to watch. I think there's a reason that you picked it as well. This is very common. Do not feel like this is rare. And it's particularly sad to have the connotation of that fear of missing out, and of, I think ultimately it's not just loneliness, there's a fear of squandering in here, squandering opportunities. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way, and it becomes a self-confirming prophecy, really, because when you miss out on opportunities, you convince yourself, well, that was it, that was all I had. I missed my one shot. And then you miss the next shot and you go, see, I missed my last shot, that was it. And then you miss the next one, you're like, that was my last one. And then you just keep doing that forever, even though you have opportunities ahead of you. But because you don't have the precedent for yourself of connection and of feeling like you lived up to the moment, because you don't have that precedent for yourself, it feels so difficult. It feels impossible to break out of that habit. It feels like a prophecy, and like it feels like you were doomed. It feels like a personality trait instead of a habit, and that is not the case. I will read the description for this one, but I'll say right away, I think it's very telling. Just the immediately obvious things here. The desire card here focuses so much on the self rather than on getting into that connection, and I think that makes sense because of that like sense of, well, that's not even an option for me. You can't desire the things that you don't even think could be on the table for you. So I suspect this card is obscuring something else. What I mean by that is, it mentions here healing. There is a lot of introspection happening in this card already. I think that a desire for healing can never be your end goal in life, right? Because once you are healed, you still have so much more life ahead of you, and that means you have so much more to want for. You will unlock more things that interest you, more things that matter to you, and therefore more things that you will want and you will desire. And so when I say this is obscuring, what I mean is, I think on some level you maybe know, once you are able to get the thing you are focusing on desiring right now, which would be healing, I think you know that underneath that, you're going to have to contend with the fact that this is your most ultimate desire as well. And so I think maybe you're focusing on the self in here, not in a bad way, not in a narcissistic way. I think focusing on the self can be a good thing, but I also think you're using it to convince yourself that, how do I put this? I think you're trying to ignore how deeply you want this, because it can be really overwhelming and almost embarrassing to admit that you want something you don't think you can get, and you maybe don't think you even deserve. Again, I don't think it's bad at all to focus on the self first. I actually think that's probably a very prudent decision. But again, just visually taking in these two cards, you can see how bright it is over here and the darkness over here. You can see the two people facing towards the camera, one person facing away. There's a lot to take in there that I think is reasonably obvious. Anyway, for now I'm going to go ahead and read the description. I do believe this is also the last card in the deck. I again opened it to self-ceremony, wow. Alright. Number 44, Winter Woodlands. Self-compassion. Healing takes time. Honor what you feel. Take time to honor what you feel. Self-compassion is the healing balm you desire. I've never had, maybe I'm wrong about this, I don't believe I've ever had a reading where the name of the position, the desire card, the desire position, is in the description for the card itself. The desire here. That's very on the nose. Flip the page here. Heart healing can feel a lot like being in winter woodlands. In this landscape, it can seem like time is standing still, and the pain you are facing will be with you forever. Healing is never simple, and oftentimes you may not even know you're in a healing phase until you've made your way out. You may be ready to give up and shut yourself off from anything good that is attempting to come into your life. But you have pulled this card to tell you that healing is happening for you. Do not feel any pressure to heal your heart in any particular way. Sometimes it may feel like you're just going in circles, passing the same emotions and feelings time and time again. But you must trust that you are headed in the right direction. Be gentle with yourself in the coming weeks, allowing yourself to feel what you're feeling without trying to change. You can still love someone even if they have hurt you, or grieve for something even if other people don't understand why. That doesn't mean you're silly. It means you're human. Don't worry, the frost on your heart will thaw and spring will find you again. So this is very, very healing focused, but also there is still an isolation to it. I mentioned before the hermit and hermitage, but then also said like the true hermit is about like study and introspection. And I actually think this card is very aligned with that. I compare the hermit to not like the loner living in the cave by the sea, but rather a monk in the middle of like a vow of silence. That's the hermit, right? Where that vow of silence serves a purpose. And so I think there is a desire here, very straightforwardly, of there's just a desire to get better. There's a desire to get better focusing on the self first. I had thought that these cards then, it might make more sense if these cards are trying to say, oh, you don't need to, you don't need to heal everything about yourself in order to get the connection first, which is true. However, I'm not sure that's what they're saying right off. I will read the description for self-ceremony. But visually right away, and again, this is the bridge card. It's meant to be where these two overlap perfectly. And I was talking about the visuals of each of these, and like the light and the dark, and you can see here, it's an individual, though finally facing the camera, in a very dark room. However, there is a window here through which you can see the light outside. And I mean, look how perfectly that window matches up to here. That looks like it's all the same scene. And whereas the walls here look just like the sky there, I mean, these three go so perfectly together in that way. Interestingly, it has an overlap of the birds as well, with the white birds in the sky over this scene here. Whereas there's just a single bird here, but it's closer to the figure. These have them in flight like they're over here, but still connected to the figure. There's a lot of things that could mean. I suspect that will be more personal to you, if that's something that resonates with you, anything to do with birds or flights. So let me take a look here. Self-ceremony 37. Let's look in the book here. The bridge, self-ceremony, planning, future self, material pursuits, and focusing on desire. That's 2 cards now that make mention of desires. Create the visions you desire. Take action in the plans that lead to fulfillment. From just that short descriptors there and the keywords, it already sounds like it would make more sense in the key position, the way through position. I mentioned that exact thing several times in the Samhain reading I did with an oracle deck, and I also mentioned earlier that they tend to sound like pieces of advice, and so oftentimes the bridge card feels like it should be in the way through position as a piece of advice, and so it can take sometimes a little extra time to make sense of it. But it's interesting that that's like it's saying, oh, go take action, but that's not in the advice position really, it's just in the overlap, which is surprising given that there's not a whole lot of action in that card there. But let's read the full description here. Your ego has become a bit of a villain, but it can be just as powerful a tool as your intuition, guiding you to the things you want for your life and family. Ultimately, it's your higher self that guides your ego's choices. Your ego is more focused on material and self-serving pursuits, but you shouldn't feel guilty for wanting a comfortable lifestyle or seeking earthly accomplishments. One moment, checking my phone. I need to text back my sister real quick. It's true that money can't buy happiness, but it can certainly buy things that contribute to your well-being, safety, peace of mind, and joy. This card urges you to take a more active role in where your life is going and what you want to fill your life with. Being intentional doesn't mean you can't leave room for going with the flow. Pretending to like something or someone for the sake of being in flow is denying yourself your truest desires, and the universe would rather you provide a vision as a starting point. In turn, you will be presented with options or even upgrades for your original plans. Rather than asking the universe what your life purpose is, try telling Spirit what you want to do or enjoy doing, and then ask, how can I make this happen? Then sit back and let the powers that be show you the way. If you're uncertain about what you want, receiving this card is your sign to start envisioning your future self. There are often going to be cars driving by outside. there's nothing I can do about it. I live by a road, and I've learned there is no point trying to edit around it. I hope that that's not too distracting. I personally have grown to like the sound. Then sit back and let the powers that be show you the way forward. If you're uncertain about what you want, receiving this card is your sign to start envisioning your future self, letting your mind guide you to your wildest dreams. Like I said, a lot of these cards feel more like direct advice, and so it feels like I always want to take them immediately as being the way through. But crucially, this is not meant to be in an advice position. This is meant to show and reveal where the fear and desire overlap. And it's a strange one for that, because it is so, even in the context of these cards in general being advicey, this is an extremely advicey card. Again, visually there is clear symbolism for it being a sort of place between. Maybe in here there is a representation of sort of just trying. There is, again, you can see here, there's like the single individual. This is the individual here. But this one, you can see it's facing forward, and crucially it is in deep meditation. That is introspection, not isolation, though there's not always a clear delineation between the two, as they often go hand in hand. Let me take another look at this. I'm interested by this one, I don't know. Let me skim back through it. Talks a lot about ego at the beginning of the description, and I think that's probably a very logical way to interpret it, because that the fear of interpersonal connection is the result of a fractured ego. Right? So I'm getting in here, it hasn't made mention of this in the cards, but I'm just getting a vibe of a very strong, a strong need for inner child healing, maybe even more than shadow work. I'm seeing old wounds and old patterns that were never helpfully and meaningfully, that you were never meaningfully guided through. And so I think in self-ceremony here, it is showing that both the fear of connection and the desire for healing, there's a reluctance to relinquish ego. And by ego, I don't mean narcissism. I mean more an attachment to these storylines we tell ourselves about who we are. That's what I mean by ego in this case. Sort of a hyper-specific sense of self that is not necessarily based on introspection and truth. It's based on having let people tell you who you were from a young age. And so because in this reading the fear and desire are so clearly correlated and closely related to the point of nearly being the same thing already, I think this bridge card is I think it is a little bit of advicey on purpose here. There's kind of a reassurance to that from the cards of recognizing the desire for introspection and deep meditation of the self in a way that is maybe not being lived up to yet, but there is a desire for it in both, even within your fear card, there is still the desire for it so strongly. And for that matter, your desire is fear so strongly. I think that this honors sort of the idea that maybe I was going to say that you're doing the best you can, because that's a very nice, comforting thing to say. I actually think that maybe isn't the case, and please don't react emotionally to that. Most people aren't doing their best all the time. That's very normal, because it's very scary to do your best about the things you're most afraid of. So it's not quite trying your best, but there's a willingness to it, a willingness to try that I can recognize and that the cards can recognize. You wouldn't know to want healing unless you were already fairly tapped into that sense of ego in your fear. And that's not nothing, because a lot of people don't have that kind of self-awareness. So, for now I'm going to move on to the way through card. I think this will help make sense of it all. Angelica, number 2. Way through card, number 2, Angelica, guardian angel, help is on the way, protection. The bells have rung, chiming far and near. Underneath feathered wings, my dear, you have nothing to fear. I forgot that this mentioned feathered wings when I pointed out the birds on those first 3 cards. That's interesting. I like that. That feels very fortuitous. Underneath feathered wings, you have nothing to fear. Notably, just visually, only the bridge and the fear are underneath the birds, whereas the desire card is comfortably beside a bird not in flight. Rest assured that help is on the way, and you are safe to move forward, knowing all will be well. You may have experienced some troubles lately and are wondering if you're unlucky or what you've done to bring those misfortunes into your life. From your perspective, it's easy to feel as though the universe is treating you unfairly. But Spirit never sends more than you can handle. While you may not see it, there is always protection and help to hold you up and carry you to the next leg of your journey. This card brings good news. You are coming to the end of your struggles. So don't give up hope. Stay vigilant, as you might receive an unexpected helper or message that could change everything for you. In the meantime, Trust that your spiritual support team is removing obstacles for you. And if you're ever unsure of their contribution to your greatest good, simply ask them to show you a sign to let you know the next correct step towards happiness. Have faith and confidence in your ability to overcome any challenge that is put in your path. This is such a deeply comforting and reassuring card. That's, in a single word, it's reassurance. And I think this is sort of a recognition that your desire is good. People, when I do this reading for people, they often think with the fear and the desire that the desire is inherently more negative, and that's what they're using to run away from the fear. They think that it's automatically vice. And that's not the case, and it's clear that's not the case here. In fact, what I see here is an indication that this is not meeting you at the beginning of a journey for you, like an inner journey, I mean. It's meeting you where already there's a desire for healing, where already there's that self-reflection and self-ceremony here. And so I think this card is meant to be taken as something of like a pat on the back for knowing enough to want to heal and for having that self-awareness. I think it just wants to guide you a little bit through that sense of ego. It makes mention of things like, spirit guides and spirit teams. It says to look out for messages and helpers. So it is still gently guiding towards that sense of others outside of just you. Notably, again, we have the two figures here, and then individual figures here. This one is, I think, maybe unique in this deck in that there's only the individual figure standing here, but there's sort of like a ghostly spirit figure at the top, meant to indicate that maybe the isolation you feel, that loneliness, is something of an illusion. You are never truly alone. And so I think this card is trying to reassure you that your practice in wanting to focus on healing, even if you've been reluctant and slow to start it, this is good, and if you keep on that, then good things are on your way inevitably. So it's saying keep going with that, but it's also, there's a gentle reminder in here to say, but don't get it twisted, you're not actually truly alone. If it's something you believe in that might be spirits or deity or what have you, it's not true that you're ever really alone. There is presence around you. Right now, you are here with me, though not physically, of course, and I know that's no replacement. There's still no real connection here. I don't want to, people like to use the word parasocial a lot, and I think it's a good word that has a purpose. I also think that I don't like seeing it being used to ignore the fact that the weird sort of quasi-interactions we have with people virtually like this, they're not interactions. They're just not the same as face-to-face interactions. That's a longer rant for another time, but it is good to remember that this is not us knowing each other intimately in a normal sense. However, there is still an interaction happening here. You're not alone just in that way. Notably, you're also watching this video on a device that was made by other people. You're watching it through internet that was built and maintained by other people. You know what I mean? Like, there's zoom out of your life for a second and really think about, like, look around you and take in how much of other people is surrounding you right now, even though I know it's not meeting that connection you both want and fear. It's not satisfying the need for interpersonal connection, but it is not the same. You're not the only person on earth when you are alone. And so it is impossible not to have other people touching and moving your life in some way. And so I think this card is trying to remind you that loneliness is an illusion. That doesn't mean it's not real exactly, or that it's not a valid thing to feel, but it's also not as directly true as your emotional reaction is trying to convince you it is. So I highly recommend, if you don't do it already, I highly recommend some meditation. There's clearly a desire for something meditative here already, with the desire for healing the heart, the desire to thaw. So if you're not already, I highly recommend taking up a meditation practice. And I also highly recommend, I'm going to recommend 3 things. 1, a meditation practice. 2, looking up maybe some inner child work, because I see a lot of that here. There's not a lot of depictions of small children in this deck that I've seen. I think this card might be one of the only ones that has it, especially with the way that they are sitting, being moved through the snow, through the world by an adult. I feel strongly with this in the fear position that there is a little bit of that like fractured inner child that needs to be nurtured and needs and deserves to be healed. So when you feel like you can handle it, I recommend also trying to think about doing some inner child work for yourself. And then lastly, just sort of trusting. This card is really saying to just trust. And don't trust in a way where you stop doing the work, or don't start if it's early days for you. It's okay. That's okay. But with this reading, I see so much work already being laid. Trust that healing is real and possible. Trust that the presence of other people, whether spiritual or literal, in your life are already there and want to serve you. And trust yourself. You have so much awareness in you, and that is so often the rarest thing and the hardest thing to acquire if you don't have it. Please take this as a reassurance. This is a very reassuring reading. It's sad in parts, but very reassuring. Please know that you are not ever truly alone. I hope that you can feel some kind of connection here. Again, it is not going to satisfy all of your need for connection. It shouldn't. But it's not nothing, and I mean it so genuinely when I say thank you for being here with me. Hello, group 2. Group 2, the icy, clear crystal quartz. So, just as I explained already, doing a 4-card shadow work reading. If you'd like to, you can try and focus your intent while we're shuffling the cards. But there's nothing you need to do right now. Just letting yourself breathe. Oh, that one was almost coming out. So we'll leave it there, I think. So first is the fear card. That which you most fear. That which you most desire. The bridge card and the way through. I just realized I didn't check the bottom root card for the first group. How interesting. I might check it for this reading, or I might not. I'm not sure yet. I'm going to flip all 4 of them, and then go to the guidebook to check more in depth on the meanings of the cards we find here. The first card, that which you most fear. Antlers. Allow the magic of who you are to be seen by the eyes you keep. You are enough, my dear. Take ease in receiving. So, right away, there seems to be a fear of being seen, and by extension, a resistance to feeling deserving. But I will hold off on too much until we read the full descriptions. Card number 2, that which you most desire. Sacred space. Number 36. Mundane to eyes, not of my own. These sacred responsibilities are mine to embrace. They both make mention of eyes, which is interesting. This of being seen, being allowed to be seen by these eyes. And this says mundane to eyes, not of my own. So already there is a strong sense of assuming other people's perspectives on you and your life. That's coming through very strong in here. The word ego came up in the first group's reading, and I'm already seeing maybe something of that in here, but we will need to read more. I have not yet pulled this card. I think it's very beautiful, if you can see it. There's a desire for ownership, and in it kind of also mundane night, the 2 eyes not of my own, kind of a desire to feel free from thinking about other people's perspectives a bit, which already feels like it perfectly counters the fear card, in a sense. It's always interesting with the bridge card when I feel like the overlap here is so clear, with that sense of being watched, sort of, a sense of others, judgments, and preconceived notions of you. So oftentimes the bridge card will surprise me when I feel like the overlap is already clear. So let's find out what it says. It says rosemary bread. Again, bearing in mind the bridge card is meant to be the place where these two are the same for you. The overlap in that Venn diagram for you. Rosemary bread, 35. Share and commune with the ones who mean the most to you. Break bread with the spirit of rosemary, which will call for healing and mend. This one, I said I may be expected to be surprised. This one actually feels like it already makes perfect sense. Even without reading anything from the guidebook, I feel like I have a very good sense of this reading already. This one feels very straightforward. I made note in the first group's reading of the number of figures on each card, because this deck really leans towards solitude and introspection, and so most of them just have a single figure here. So it's notable that there are two on this one. It's about communion with others. It's a very domestic bend, of course. Familial, even if not technically family. Break bread with the spirit of rosemary, which will call for healing and mend. It is written very in a giving advice tone. Oracle decks often are, and so it makes them a little bit ill-equipped for this particular spread that I do, because the bridge card is meant to be more about awareness rather than getting advice on how to act on it. So be careful not to read this card too much into the advice of it, and use it to know the overlap, which is pretty plainly just other people, the communion, the community, connection. Connection was coming up a lot in the first reading as well. I'm always interested when multiple readings have similar themes. For now, let's read the fourth card, the key card, the way through. Oh, self-ceremony. This was the bridge card for the first group, and I made mention that this was, even in a very advicey deck, this was like the most advicey card they have, it seemed. And I said that it seemed like it almost should be the way through card, the key card, and that it was interesting that it wasn't. Here, pulling it a second time and it being in the way through position is very, very cool. Self-ceremony, 37. Create the visions you desire. Take action in the plans that lead to fulfillment. With the theme of eyes, please note that it says create the visions you desire. So we've got some overarching themes for you already. Let's consult the guidebook and get more specific about the meaning of these cards. Open right to it. Number 3, the fear card. Number 3, antlers. Receiving gifts. Once in a lifetime, you are enough. Again, as you listen, bearing in mind that this is what the cards are saying is your shadow's deepest fear. Allow the magic of who you are to be seen by the eyes you keep. You are enough, my dear. Take ease in receiving. Seeing a white stag is said to be an incredible gift that brings an omen of good fortune for those lucky enough to receive this incredible sight. Receiving the antlers card is likewise a wonderful gift to remind you that if something is being offered to you, it is because you are worthy of receiving it. You have the right to accept every good thing you experience without needing to diminish it. In fact, it is considered poor taste to turn down gifts in many cultures. So imagine how someone might feel if you disagreed with a compliment they've given you, or you said no to something offered in genuine kindness. The situation you have inquired about is safe to say yes to, and more than that, you are encouraged to embrace it with welcome arms. This may be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Know that all of the billions of people in the world, know that of all the billions of people in the world, you were the one chosen to receive this opportunity, meet this person, or have this idea, so don't question your worth. You are more than enough just as you are. This is such a encouraging card that it being in the fear position pretty straightforwardly seems to represent a fear, a deep-seated fear and belief that you are not good enough, not enough, period, and not deserving. And not just that there's a belief that all of that is true, but also there is a fear in disagreeing with it. I think people talk a lot about fear of failure, and what's not spoken about as much, though I suspect it is at least as common, if not more so, is a fear of success, and I think that's what you have. A fear of success, a deep, deep imposter syndrome, and a reluctance to allow kindness to flow towards you rather than only ever away from you. I like how in the description it points out that that is itself a little bit rude, to not allow reciprocity. This card in the fear position reminds me a lot of the way that I interpret, which card is that? I believe the Six of Pentacles in a classic 78 card deck, tarot deck. I interpret that as being, it is thought of often as being about like being charitable and generous. I always interpret it as being about flow and like, I wrote down true generosity in my journal about it. And what I mean by that is that charity can be given without kindness in one's heart. Charity can be given without reciprocity, because the act of giving to others can be a huge ego boost to the giver. That's not a bad thing. However, you will notice that it's coming from a bad place when there is a sharp refusal to ever be on the receiving end. that's when you know that that ego is taking over. Because you know, if you only like to give to others and not to allow yourself to be given to, what is that saying about how you view the people you reach a hand out to? When you reach that hand out, are you always reaching down? And how is that feeding into you? This is likely a latent belief and not a very conscious one. And so if you're immediately trying to disagree with it, maybe it doesn't apply to you, but it's worth spending some time pondering maybe. Because what is it revealing about how you truly view people who accept gifts, accept charity, accept the things you want to offer? What do you truly think about them if you refuse to be on the receiving end? I think people often hide some of that ego behind the belief of not being deserving of it, and being like, oh no, I think more highly of the people who accept it because they deserve it and I don't. But I think maybe there's a little bit of that pull of ego in there as well, where it's like, well, yeah, I'm undeserving of good things, but also I'm too good to need it. I don't think it applies to all of you hearing this, but I definitely don't think it's none of you, and a sharp resistance to it might warrant giving it a little bit more thought sometime when you feel comfortable enough to engage in that kind of reflection. But the overall theme of this is just about not feeling worthy. And before I move on to the others, I'll just say about that in order to not feel worthy, you're spending a lot of time focusing on not just appraisal like you think you are, you're focusing a lot on comparison. Because worthiness is often comparative to other people, and so you are putting a lot of overemphasis on that comparison, and I think that's probably worth bearing in mind as we move through the rest of this reading and as you consider your shadow work. Now on to desire, sacred space. Desire card, number 36, sacred space. Mundane tasks, gaining control over life, a need for practicality. Mundane to eyes not of my own, these sacred responsibilities are mine to embrace. Sacred doesn't always mean extraordinary. Grand ceremonies are preceded by small, often boring labors that come together to create a masterpiece. While these small duties are often overshadowed in the grand scheme of things, they are ultimately what fuels the beautiful side of life. There is powerful magic and healing in putting in the hard work now so that you can play later. Consider saving money for a quality purchase down the road rather than splurging on things that might break or fall apart quickly. Staying in and working on a project instead of going out, or compromising now for the long-term health of your relationship. when this card comes up, it may be time to be more reasonable, responsible, or practical in your endeavors. If you're seeking to gain more control over your life or situation, or are failing to receive desired results, then you are urged to shift your focus from glamorous expectations and start seriously investing time and effort needed to create the rewards you desire. Certain tasks or engagements may not be fun, but are necessary all the same if a successful outcome is desired. Yet again, this deck is very advicey. That's how oracle decks are. Bear in mind, this is not in the way through position. This is meant to reveal something, not guide you right now. So the part of it that are worded as like advice and tell you actionable steps to take should not necessarily be taken as literally what to do, but rather, in this case, as revealing what you want. And in this, I see, first of all, a humble, simple life, which is a very noble desire. What I'm also seeing is the idea of, but bearing in mind that what we were talking about with this card, I'm seeing the idea of like wanting and maybe needing to feel like you've earned your keep, right? So if this being your deepest desire, I'm seeing the idea of thinking if you just keep your head down and do the work and do the work and never rest and do the work, then that'll someday make you deserving of good things. The reason I like this reading so much is sometimes it does recontextualize cards really well. This is not a takeaway I would have ever gotten from this card, but I'm just seeing that idea of like, well, if I just never stop needing to prove myself, then one day I'll have proved myself. And it's like, well, you'll never stop. You'll just never stop. And so I think there are noble pursuits in this, good things to want, and good things to want to do in this. It's not that this is all in all a bad desire to have, but played against the fears brewing over here, I'm seeing a strong avoidance. I'm seeing a story maybe you're telling yourself about how to sort of like think your way out of this and like work your way out of this, and that this is a thing you can just like bootstrap your way out of. That's not how deep fears work. It will follow you into everything. It will follow you your whole life. It will follow you into every effort you make. It can never end if you just keep like needing to prove yourself and to earn. And there's a way to find a balance where the simple work that keeps a life afloat. It hasn't said this, but I feel strongly probably a lot of work you do for other people, for other people's benefit, a lot of maybe being relied upon. All of that is good to do, and you don't need to relinquish that. We just need to look at uncoupling that from the idea that it is a moral imperative you have to wait for the joys of life and wait to be given to until you've earned it by just never ever stopping doing all the work. Now let's see what it's saying about the bridge card. So the bridge card here, the place where the fear and the desires are the same within you. Come on, let go. For you, that is rosemary bread. 35. Sharing, community, breaking bread, healing relationships, and making amends. Yet again, bearing in mind that this is meant to be not direct advice, but to reveal where it is the overlap here. Already it makes perfect sense to me, particularly starting with the keyword of sharing. That's what I was talking about the Six of Pentacles energy and like the flow of energy back and forth to give and to receive. That's really the main thing I was trying to say about the Six of Pentacles, is that it is only an exchange of equals if you give without judgment and receive without judgment. And so this being the bridge card there could not be more perfect so far. Let's read the full description here. Share and commune with the ones who mean the most to you. Break bread with the spirits of rosemary, which will call for healing and mend. A relationship may be on the rocks when pulling this card. Tensions are running high and one or more parties are reacting from a place of fear and of vulnerability rather than a compassionate place of compromise. Yet again, as I was saying, not in equal footing and in equal beliefs about that. This card advises you to break bread and begin to mend trust and commitment in your relationships, which may require you to be the bigger person. Somebody has to be. Extending an olive branch to encourage love to flow again. If you're inquiring about a previous relationship, pulling this card is a sign that you will reconnect in a positive way, either for the purpose of continuing the relationship or to receive closure. If you're inquiring about your career, now may be a good time to follow up or try to rebuild burned bridges, offering a sincere apology where necessary and being truthful. If your question is about finances, it's time to reconcile your relationship with money, confronting any limiting financial beliefs you've acquired over the years. So, this being about reconnection and sort of healing fractures. It mentions like the olive branch. That being the bridge here. I think this is really revealing the issue with both your desire and your fear, because there is fracture in both of these. There's a fracture with that fear of being seen, the fear of being judged, the fear of, there's a lot of assuming happening, a lot of assumptions of what other people think, what other people mean. There's a lot of assumptions that are not being properly questioned. And actually that's just as true over here, really, with that desire to put in the work and do it all. There's a lot of assuming other people's intentions and beliefs and expectations. Visually, what interests me is how much it looks like it belongs in here. The fear card is notably outdoors. It's cold. Whereas these two with the desire and bridge, they're indoors, they're warm, they're domestic. They are notably less connected to nature as well. So, but this looking like these look like they're in the same house, really. That, to me, says a lot about it may be leaning more this way. So where you might be inclined to take this idea of fractured relationships and assume, fractured relationships, that'll go more towards the fear side. I think it's being made very clear that actually, even within your desires, there is still a need to heal, or your relationships will only suffer and you won't understand why. Running from the fear will not save those relationships at all. And now for the way through. Immediately, it is self-ceremony. So there's a focus on the self, whereas the others have such a strong focus on other people, your relationships to other people, the things you do for other people. Also, the theme I was mentioning about the eyes. Notably, her eyes are not just closed, but one of them is covered by the bird. Which I see is somewhat bridging back to that outdoor nature energy as well, connecting to that, being willing to see into that wholeheartedly, where you would rather look away. Let's read the description in its entirety. The way through, the key card, the energy you need to tap into to work through the problem at hand. It's 37, self-ceremony. Planning, future self, rather. Material pursuits, and focusing on desires. Create the visions you desire. Take actions in the plans that lead to fulfillment. Your ego has become a bit of a villain, but it can be just as powerful a tool for your intuition as your intuition, guiding you to the things you want for your life and family. So there is still a connection to the people in your life as well, still in this card. Ultimately, it's your higher self that guides your ego's choices. Your ego is more focused on material and self-serving pursuits, but you shouldn't feel guilty for wanting a comfortable lifestyle or seeking earthly accomplishments. It's true that money can't buy happiness, but it can certainly buy things that contribute to your well-being, safety, peace of mind, and joy. This card urges you to take a more active role in where your life is going and what you want to fill your life with. Being intentional doesn't mean you can't leave room for going with the flow. pretending to like something or someone for the sake of being in flow is denying yourself your truest desires, and the universe would rather you provide a vision as a starting point. In return, you will be presented with options or even upgrades for your original plans. That reminds me of the simplicity and modesty and humble life presented in the desires originally. Rather than asking the universe what your life purpose is, try telling Spirit what you want to do or enjoy doing, and then ask, how can I make this happen? Then sit back and let the powers that be show you the way forward. If you are uncertain about what you want, receiving this card is your sign to start envisioning your future self, letting your mind guide you to your wildest dreams. This feels to me very straightforward. It is not bad by any means to want humble things, a simple life. I think this card is guiding you to wonder if that is in fact what you want from life, or if it is because you've been afraid to want more. It mentions sitting back, letting spirits bring you good things, inquiring truly about what it is you want, inquiring into yourself. I take this in this instance as being very much about self-study. I think that there's a lot of avoiding introspection going on in here, and then wondering why the same habits and the same patterns keep popping up in your interpersonal relationships. You are being urged to focus a little bit on the self, and that will sound to you, given the things you're anxious about it, that will sound to you like narcissism, that will sound to you like leaning more into your ego. It is not. It is. We're not talking about removing your focus to only being on yourself or making yourself your only priority. As I noted, the description for this even talks about building a life for you and your family, the people around you as well. What we are talking about here is a kind of introspection where you are questioning yourself, holding the mirror up to yourself in a way that has been scary to you for a while, but allowing yourself to do that gently and kindly and with self-compassion. Your two options are not just completely putting yourself aside for others or focusing on yourself and feeding into ego and becoming this narcissistic monster who just needs to constantly self-flagellate because you're not feeling like you deserve anything and feeling like a bad person for thinking about yourself. Frankly, there's a lot of thinking about yourself going on already. You're just avoiding focusing on that. And you're kind of using the people in your life to let yourself not think about that. This card, as the way through, is advising you to focus on your actions rather than your intentions. Or no, I'm misspeaking, I'm sorry. Focus on your intentions rather than just your actions. Is every act of kindness you offer to others coming from as genuine a place as you like to tell yourself? Have you been keeping score? It looks like maybe you have. Have you been doing things for people because you believe they are incapable? Is that not feeding into your ego a little bit? And have you been refusing things because you're just so used to not receiving that you think that's the only way for you and that feels unnatural to you? That's not fair to you either. That's not kind to you either. You are a part of your own community, and the way you treat yourself will reverberate out through that, through the family structure, through the friends, through romantic relationships, and even through work. The way you treat yourself will show up in the ripples around you. And so the unkindness you've shown to yourself is already causing problems. And so focusing on the self, I think maybe, and I mean this in the gentlest, kindest way, I think maybe you are overdue for an ego death, and the only way to get there is through solid self-reflection and introspection. And that will feel like giving into ego when you're not used to thinking about yourself that much. But I will point out that if this is something you're kind of resisting doing, or something you don't want to do, you would not have clicked on a shadow work tarot reading if you weren't already willing to do it and on some level aware that it's time to. It is time to. Because the people in your life deserve it, and more importantly, you deserve it. I like to sometimes wonder when I do these videos why, like after I find out what the sort of thesis of a reading is, I like to try to think about why the group that needed to hear that might have chosen the word or item that I assigned to that group. And what I see here is an object that is a clear quartz. So it is technically a clear crystal, but look how cloudy it is. There's something about the sight, which means there's something about perspective, something about clouded vision. I don't think that right now your perspective has been as objective as you'd like for it to be, and as you've maybe been adamant that it's been. So do not be afraid to reconsider some things. Don't be afraid to wonder if you're wrong. Don't be afraid. Don't take that on in such a critical way. There is, especially with antlers, there is such a, what's the term? Rejection sensitivity, which is very common, and there's nothing wrong with experiencing that, but you should be aware if that is something that you're doing, where you maybe take on criticism too much. Are you one of those people who, if someone very calmly is like, hey, something you said bothered me, is there part of you that's like, I should be shot for this? Because that's very common. A lot of people kind of overreact to criticism like that. And so I think that's where that self-reflection can come in and really help you with that. Really think critically about your patterns. It is okay to spend the time to spend that time on yourself. In the long run, I'm even reluctant to say this, in the long run that will be good for the people in your life as well. But I'm reluctant to say that because even if it wouldn't ever be useful to anyone else, it is still worth doing, and so I don't want you to go into it with that motivation, but if it helps you at all to get started, it inevitably will be better for the people around you as well, for you to take this time on yourself. Please move into that gently, with compassion for the self. And remember to treat yourself just like you would treat your friends and family. And then remember to treat friends and family just the way you treat yourself. Hello, group 3, the spoon group. I have such an affinity for these silly little teaspoons. This is probably the group I would have chosen as well. So you're very much a person after my own heart. Let's just get right into it. Go ahead and focus your breath and try to call in your shadow self. Focus on that as we shuffle the cards, willing to take on whatever messages they have to bring us. I have a hard time shuffling properly on camera because I'm reaching around a microphone right now. I do stop in between. Oh no. See what I mean? I do stop in between readings to shuffle it properly off camera, nice and loud and messy. So these are already shuffled. Just giving it a final go. I think that's good. Alright, so calling in your shadow, we are pulling that which you fear, that which you desire, the bridge between them, and the way through. Let me get the guidebook at the ready over here. So, I've had to bring this up with every group so far, so I'll just start it off now and say that oracle decks often aren't very good for this particular reading, simply because they are so often used for single card readings that they have baked into them a very strong advice, actionable advice kind of energy to them, and the verbiage they're using. So the cards are very focused on using sort of action-based advice in them, which makes perfect sense for the way through card and not as much for the other three, as they are meant to be more reflective. So when these three, the first three, if they sound like they're giving advice, please remember that that's meant to be taken in the context of the meaning of the card's placement in the spread. So, with that in mind, we'll start with the first card, which is the fear card. That which you fear. And here we have river rocks. Go with the current, dear one. Find peace in letting go. Let life wash over your soul and welcome your becoming. I will flip over all the cards before going into the guidebook and reading the descriptions there. But my first thought is sort of a stubbornness, a stuck in your wayness, and mostly a resistance of sorts. I see anxiety in this, maybe a fear of change. Some people have fear of missing out. I'm seeing here maybe some fear of opting in, but we will see once we read the full description and take it in the context of the full reading. The desire card, that which you most desire. Cinnamon rolls, valid. It says, warm my heart, all deserving comfort, readies my heart. I got this in a meaningful reading to me in a video I made where I was getting to know the deck. So this is a card that's very tied to my soul a little bit now. Is that too overdramatic? But that's just a desire for warmth, and I will need to reread the description, but I believe it's a very loving card. There's so much affection, maybe even specifically romance in this. Similar to the previous reading, right away I'm noticing how the fear card is outdoors. You can see there's a house, but it's far off in the distance. It's warmth billowing into the wind. Whereas the desire card is indoors. It's very domestic. It's in a kitchen. There's still a window to the outside, but it is closed, keeping the warmth inside. I think that's maybe pertinent. We'll see moving forward. The bridge card, meaning to be the place within you where these two overlap. The place where they are the same. Candle dressing. 12. What was that number? 14. 12. Sharp as nails, engraving my will. Intentions spoken, declare what will be. I have not read the full description for this card yet, I don't think, so I will need to look that up before I try to come to conclusions, but I will admit I think I have a good sense of it already. I see a lot of general anxiety in here. In this reading so far. Sort of that fear of change, desire for love. And in the overlap card, what I'm seeing is the card saying that what these have in common for you is maybe a compulsion towards a sense of control. But I will have to read the full description of it. And finally, the way through card, or the key card, the energy that you are being advised to call upon to work through the situation at hand. The coming of spring. 15. Beneath my feet stir the waking, spiraling surges of warmth that tell of life ready to birth. It feels a lot like change and accepting cycles. We'll say right away it goes in very well with the fear card. So I suspect there'll be a prompt to sit with fear and work through it. That car is on my end. I live right by a road, so there are car sounds sometimes. Let's look in the guidebook for the full description of river rocks. The fear card, that which the shadow in you fears the most. Number 34, river rocks. Going with the flow, finding peace, washing away the old. Go with the current, dear one, find peace in letting go. Let life wash over your soul and welcome your becoming. A river rock has no choice where it goes. Water washes it along the banks, or perhaps a stranger picks it up and throws it into the deep to sink to the bottom. Wherever the rock lands, it has ended up where it was supposed to be. And when drawing this card, you too are experiencing something your soul signed up for long before your time on earth. There isn't much you can do to change the outcome of your situation, so you're being guided to go with the flow and let the river rocks fall where they may. This card will generally come to you during times of disappointment and suggest you are only seeing what you've lost. You may not yet know the silver lining of your situation, so focus on finding peace with where you are rather than trying to create a different outcome. Additionally, you are receiving this card because you are having a hard time letting go of the past. It's time to wash away what was, or you'll miss the beauty and joy of your new surroundings. Now, in the guidebook, they also have here a ritual, a river rock cleansing ritual here. But I think I'm not going to read it for the sake of this reading because like I was saying, only the way through card is meant to be taken as direct advice and the others more as reflections. So I'm not going to read that for now. It's not about getting like actionable advice from it. It was very much what it seemed originally from the description here. The anxiety, the fear of letting go, and a loss of control, a loss or disconnect from that sense of control of your life. This can look like a lack of agency, or it could even look like trauma. It may very well be a combination. Of being afraid to let things shake out, that trying to cling to what control you think you might have over situations. For now, let's keep reading and let them all make sense together. Your desire card is cinnamon roll. this one also, they don't always have a little like thing afterwards. But both of these have. That one had a little ritual. This one has a little simmer pot. I like that. Number 14, cinnamon rolls. In the desire position, that which you most desire. Love, self-love, comfort, being content, and peace. I can already see how you can mistake the stillness of resistance with the stillness of tranquility that you are seeking. But we'll see what the cards say about that. Warm my heart, all deserving comfort readies my heart. The cinnamon rolls card is a positive omen, and especially for love readings, it can mean a significant commitment, such as a declaration of love or proposal is very near. Bearing in mind again that this is in this position, in this reading, it's not meant to be predictive or guiding, it's meant to be reflective. This is a sweet card that appears in your reading when all seems tight in your emotional world. This is a sweet card that appears in your reading when all seems right in your emotional world. The feeling is one of being at peace and taking joy in realizing all or most of your emotional desires have manifested for you. This card may also mean your gratitude and commitment to a positive outlook have drawn to you the good fortune you are now experiencing. More and more you will find yourself welcoming extra abundance, support, and blessings into your life. But don't forget to share your good favor with your community, and especially those who are closest to you. What good is celebrating life if you can't do so with others? Your willingness to help other people in need will be repaid to you in incredible, unexpected ways. This is maybe the most widely applicable desire card I think I've ever pulled. Love, abundance, peace, fulfillment, just sort of generally everything a person wants out of life. It's almost so general as to be unhelpful, so I think that it's meant to show the distinction there between, as I put it before, the stillness of resistance versus the stillness of true peace. In this, there's also that desire for people. It focuses a lot on love, romance, and family, and community, which is not very present in the fear. I'm not sure if that's something you feel you already have, or if that's something that is just aspirational to you. That may vary for different listeners. So take what resonates with you for that. But in any case, every part of this in your desire position makes perfect sense. And it's all very achievable. It's just being, there are blockages to this from that stubbornness and refusal to go with the flow. There cannot be peace without surrender. Let's see what it says about the bridge card. Number 12. The bridge card, where the deck is saying that your fear and desire overlap into one. Number 12, candle dressing, setting intentions, clarity, asking for what you want. Sharp as nails, engraving my will, intentions spoken, declare what will be. I can tell you I'm already seeing a little bit of interplay with these two here, candle dressing and river rocks, as far as that sense of control. Fearing letting go of that means that it would have made a lot of sense in a certain way for that to have been present in your desire. That we could have, in another world, we might have seen this card, which so far seems like it's very about intent and by that way sort of control. There's a world where this would have been your main desire if you were completely focused on avoiding your fear. The fact that it's not, and the fact that you crave a true peace and a true connection, that's to me a very good sign that there is a willingness to relinquish control, possibly, if it can bring you the things you truly want. This, to me, this card, cinnamon rolls being in the desire, shows a lot about having your priorities in order. I will often do this reading for people, and the desire card will reveal that their priorities are a little bit out of whack. That's very common, but it is so completely devoid in this reading so far. But it's interesting to see this card that feels like it could go so well with the fear as a way to avoid that fear is present in the reading and decidedly not in the desire position. Let me read the guidebook, what it says on this card. The candle dressing card warns you to understand what you want. How much of your dreams and desires are truly your own? Are they crafted out of what is expected of you? Or are these self-aware, intentional choices you have made for yourself, irrespective of the noise of social conditioning? Receiving this card suggests a lack of clarity, not because you don't know what you want, but because you're perhaps too afraid to claim it. That plays so well into everything I was just saying, that your desires are so clear and so well prioritized, and yet still with that hoarding of fear, of letting go of control. How do they word it here? Not because you don't know what you want, but because you're too afraid to claim it. That already makes perfect sense. That's the bridge between these two. All of the readings so far, the bridge card has been so well suited, and I often struggle with the bridge cards the most in this reading. But they've been so well aligned for all three groups. It's a good energy for these readings today. It says, the fear of what others might think or say is paralyzing you, preventing you from clearly stating your desires. I mentioned that the River Rock Sphere card does not really have as much to do with other people as the Simrose card. So I think this bringing up fear of others' opinions, as the bridge card shows us where that maybe some of that fear is coming from in the first place. You are being guided to clear out any outdated beliefs about yourself, evaluating the truth of your wants and desires. When you do this work, you'll find things naturally fall into place, and that what you are meant to have will glide into your life. Manifestations will happen with greater ease, and doubt will be diminished. This card is in its most positive expression. This card in its most positive expression guides you to dream big. Remove the concept of impossible from your mind and entertain all of your wildest dreams. You may be surprised by how quickly things can come together when you ask and believe. It makes mention here, let me see. It talks about the truth of your wants and desires and understanding what you want. As I mentioned, the desire card present here in this reading is so clear-cut as like the ultimate desire card that I wonder if maybe this is the deck reflecting your shadow as being more honest than you even want to be with yourself. Maybe you have other more short-term, more short-sighted desires that are clouding this, that are mutually exclusive to this, that you have been focusing your energy on, when on some level you know that this is all that you truly desire, and you have not been coming back to this properly, likely because of the fear of letting go, the fear of what will happen if you are not the one in charge. I think that makes more sense as the elements of control in this card bridging to here. I think that maybe you are not letting yourself focus on this energy of love and peace and community. You know that this is what you want in theory, but in your practice, in your day-to-day life, this is not the thing that you are working towards, and you know that. You know that you are focusing on other goals and other dreams that are only detours towards this. And you think that if you can achieve all of those smaller things you want, that will, you can just get those all out of the way and then come back to getting this too. And that's very possible, but it's also all of the work you're doing that's taking you in a direction other than this. That is work you're going to have to undo later in order to get here anyway. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's read the final card. The way through. The coming of spring. Let's look it up. Right away, I will say that I had noted that this was like outdoors and cold, and this was very warm and indoors. Coming of spring is itself outdoors, but it is the warming of the outdoors, not the coming inside. So that might be worth bearing in mind. number 15. The way through card, the key card, the energy to call upon to help you work through the situation at hand. It's number 15, the coming of spring. Preparing for rebirth, reaching for the light, renewal and surge of hope. Right away you can see how that contrasts with river rocks. Imbolc marks the beginning of the end of winter, letting you know it's time to begin your ascent out of darkness. This card often finds you after a challenging situation or an emotional or spiritual crisis. You may have recently experienced a great shedding of what no longer serves you through the dissolution of a relationship or a dramatic end to a chapter in your life's story. You are about to enter the stage of rebuilding from the ashes and can begin to allow hope and faith to enter your spirit again. This is a positive sign if you are looking for new love or a new job. This card indicates that there are many prospects waiting for you when you're ready to put yourself out there again. Perhaps the most important meaning of this card is that you have a wide open lane to fill your life with anything you choose. The possibilities for where you go next are endless, and you should entertain all opportunities that come your way, because any of them are likely to yield positive results. I feel like this is one of the best readings I've done with an oracle deck. I almost just want to leave it at that because I think that was worded so well. I like the way I put it before about how this card shows not you coming indoors, but the outdoors, the outside warming up, nature warming up. It says here, what does it say? The possibilities for where you go next are endless. That's what the description for this card says, which notably involves going somewhere at all. Whereas this card and that stubbornness, that resistance, there is no way through to that which you most truly desire without some shedding of that control. When I first looked at this card, I mentioned that it could come from a place of trauma, and I feel like that might be the case. In particular, the coming of spring card mentioned that it might come to you at a time of, after a time of particular darkness and change. So if that is the case, please remember you can move gently, and you do not need to feel and convince yourself that you are in 100% control of all in life in order to heal and feel safe again. Again, it might not come from trauma for all of you. I think that's just for some of you, and you'll know if that resonates with you or not. It could just be old patterns, and I think that's really what this reading is saying is it's about a breaking of patterns. And that breaking of patterns can happen so gently as with the coming of spring, melting slowly. And it crucially is something that also happens very naturally. It's a very encouraging card. It's a very a very go for it kind of card. A very trusting the flow, which is obviously what this card is resisting. Give yourself time and space, and most importantly, give yourself permission to hope. You don't need to cling to the distraction desires that you've been toying with. You can jump straight to wanting the fulfillment of spirit and soul that you know is what you crave beneath all of the hyper-specific scenarios you've told yourself are the only places to find it. Let your healing unfold naturally, which does not mean not taking any steps towards it. If it is trauma-based, it could be very worthwhile to talk that through with someone, possibly a professional if that is an option available to you. But in any case, allow yourself to feel the warmth where it occurs naturally. You don't need to make it yourself. You don't need to decide it's there for yourself. You don't need to convince yourself that this is the warmest you'll ever be. Just let the warmth unfold naturally, and you will get better at noticing when it's there. It is okay to want comfort. It is okay to want to be taken care of. I think that's ultimately what I see a lot of in this card. The sweetness of it. It's okay to want to be taken care of for a while. And it is safe to allow change to unfold. It will not overwhelm you. It is not more than you can handle. You have innately what it takes to flow through life. Let me open this book real quick. 15. I'm going to just reread the last chapter of this one again for you because I liked the encouragement of it. This card indicates there are many prospects waiting for you when you're ready to put yourself out there again. Perhaps the most important meaning of this card is that you have a wide open lane to fill your life with anything you choose. The possibilities for where you go next are endless, and you should entertain all opportunities that come your way, because any of them are likely to yield positive results. There we go. Group 3. 3, thank you so much for being here for this. I hope that the pieces of this were helpful to you at all. Please let yourself feel comfort as it comes and move forward, remembering your deepest, truest desires, as simple as they may be. You are free to drift into dreams or remain just as you are. You are welcome, as always, to stay for as long as you like. Thank you for being here. I'm glad that you were here.